glad that I finally got this thing together because I was getting ready to get really stressed out. Um, you know, this technology is something else. Technology is something else. Now, all right, so I have to get my technology together for just a hot second, but I will go ahead and get started now. All right, so for those of you who do not know, my name is Reese Roberts, and this podcast is called Entertain the Thought, where we talk about consciousness in the Black community. We talk about politics, we talk about history, we talk about self development, we talk about all kinds of different things like energy and just consciousness, human evolution. So, with that being said, today I'm going to be talking about the structure of systemic oppression, and we're just going to be analyzing what that looks like, what oppression is really, and how it's being executed on the masses. Now, I want to make a specification about what I consider the masses to be, because in my observation of society, we have two different sectors of masses. You have the masses who know, and you have the masses who don't know. There are people who are conscious and people who are not conscious. And in that, we have oppression occurring in different ways because of the fact that there are some people who know and some people who don't. Some people are completely unaware of the effects of oppression, the tools of oppression, and just who is actually benefiting from it in such a way that they're perpetuating. I did an episode called "Who Is They," and it's slightly a build on this conversation that we're going to have right now. So if you want to go back and listen to that, feel free to click the link in my bio on Instagram, and you can go to listen to the episode called "Who Is They," and it'll be a good support for this argument or for this discussion that we're going to have today. So with that being said, there is a clear and present enemy that we're fighting against in this society, and there's a clear and present oppression that is being executed in a very structured and systemic way. So like I said, I want to analyze that with you guys today because there are some discussions happening on my IGTV, and that's another place that's good for you to visit. My IGTV is full of some gems that you can take away from the conversation. So, firstly, I want to talk about the fact that oppression, according to my observations, it happens in a twofold hierarchy form. So we have an overarching form of oppression, which is economic. And then the lower form of oppression is racial. I want everybody to know that the enemy that we're talking about, yes, they are Caucasian. And yes, the Caucasian race does present some issue when they are considered elite. Now, I want to make a huge specification about the fact that there are Caucasians on this planet, quite a few of them, really the majority of them, who are oppressed. They are not as oppressed as we are because they don't fall under the second fold of oppression, which is racial. And so we do have some people who are doubly oppressed on this planet because of certain political stances that they maintain. And I want you to understand that oppression is political and it is economic before it is racial. It is political and I'm going to say it in order. It's economic first, and then it is political, and then it is racial. Okay. So when we are considering all those things, we fall under really three different huge types of oppression that we could be doing something about, at least on one of those levels. On two of those levels, I don't think we can do anything about. But economically, I do think that we are able to make some changes for ourselves and politically. But I will say that as a so-called Black woman on this planet, we have to deal with the racial oppression, the political oppression, and also the economic oppression in ways that Caucasians don't. And this is a point that I want to make to some of the people who are Caucasians that follow this page, because I've heard conversations that are had between some followers in the comments, and a lot of the Caucasians that will comment about racial oppression, I feel they're kind of annoyed by the fact that Black people complain about oppression and we feel like we're the only ones who are oppressed in this country. And I would agree with that. I would agree with that frustration. I would agree with that annoying idea that, you know, Caucasians are not oppressed. I believe the opposite. I believe that Caucasians are highly oppressed economically, but I don't believe that they are oppressed racially or politically as so-called Black people are. And I want to make that distinction because I think it would make it a lot easier for Caucasians to accept the fact, first of all, this is not a competition in who's oppressed more than who. I think it should be notable and it should be noted that everybody is fighting against oppression, and we should be empathizing with those who are more oppressed than those of us who are not. From what I can gather about the way society and oppression is structured, okay, everybody, anybody who cannot pay to play, if you cannot pay to play on certain levels, then you are going to be considered oppressed, or you're going to be oppressed in one way or another on the level of income where you exist. For example, a middle class person is oppressed from the experiences and life luxuries that would be afforded to a person who is on an upper class type of income level. We experience oppression on lower levels of income, on a low class level, because we cannot afford to experience the life luxuries that are on the middle and upper class. So structurally, oppression is very I shouldn't say it's very complex, but it's more complex than what we give credit to. It's more complex than what we allow ourselves to see sometimes. We have to get to know oppression for what it is and how it is structured systemically so that we can fight it on the level that we're on. On the lower level, we have much more fighting to do, which we are a lot of times less able to fight the oppression because we have less resources. If you're on a lower or middle class level, there's not much that you can do. You have to be on an upper or elite level of income in order for you to make real changes that are really measurable in a lot of situations. I'm going to make that a general statement. I'm not going to say that emphatically for everyone. But I will say that we have a lot of work to do when it comes to lower and middle class levels of society, because we are the ones bearing the weight of oppression on the lower end. People who are on the upper and elite class, they are less attentive to what oppression would be considered because they're literally the ones who are keeping it going. If you work for someone, the person that you work for, they are interested in keeping you oppressed because they're going to need you to continue working for them. They're going to need you to continue contributing to the thing that makes them elite and makes you not. It makes you in need of a job. It makes you in need of an income and all these other things when you are bearing the weight of oppression on your shoulders. And I want to make the stipulation and just understanding that the elite are the ones that are considered the enemy. And these people are the enemy to not just Black people, so-called Black people. They are the enemy to all of humans and mankind. The earth itself considers these elite classes of people to be real, true, and identifiable enemies. And so we have to get in our minds that this fight is not between the races. We should not be hating each other because we're black or white or brown or red or all these yellows, all these colors that are given to us by Europeans. I think what's happening is that the European gives us the color because they want to strip us from the land. Why? Because they don't have any land. They decide that they want to strip it from everybody else by assigning a color. If you were to go over to an Asian country and instead of calling them Chinese or Vietnamese or Japanese or whatever kind of Asian nationality they want to claim, if you go over there and you just say, "Oh, you're yellow." You're yellow. So this, under the law, yellow people cannot buy homes in a certain tax bracket. Yellow people cannot, politically involve themselves in this. Yellow people cannot participate in this school system. Yellow people, this and that. First of all, the Asians would look at you like you're crazy if you started calling them yellow. They would be like, I'm clearly Japanese. Why are you calling me yellow? Or they would look at you stupid if you called them yellow. They're like, I'm clearly Vietnamese. Like, I live in Vietnam. I'm Vietnamese. I have Vietnamese blood. I have Vietnamese family members. I am Vietnamese. So why are you calling me yellow? You know, and in case, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Europeans call Asian people yellow, just like they would call Indian or Native people red, or they would call us Africans or indigenous people, they would call us black. They have all these different colors to assign to everybody. You know, it's called the color of law. And this is what I want you to understand about the structure of systemic oppression, is that structurally something is being done. Structurally, there is a mission to strip you of your land by calling you a name that is false, or a fictional name, which is yellow or black or red or something like that. And once I have come over and I call myself European, I call myself British, I call myself Dutch, I call myself whatever, I'm going to say, oh, this is my land because you're yellow and you're not claiming it. First of all, what land is called yellow? There is no place on earth that you can claim that you came from that's called yellow. Just like there is no place on this earth that you could claim that you call it black. There is no logical explanation for those things being done under the law besides some trickery going on. And this is what we have to understand structurally about oppression. The trickery is happening because we are willfully participating in it. Most of the time, people willfully call themselves black. Do you think an Asian would willfully call themselves yellow, or would they fight against that? And if you think they would fight against it, why do you think they would fight against it? I know for a fact they would, because they're smart. They know I'm not yellow. There's no such thing as yellow as a nationality, because there is no such thing as yellow as a nation or a landmass. It just doesn't exist. So logically, we have to start refuting the ideas that have been given to us in error, in fiction, as a mirage to get us to think that we are something that we're not. We have to know that our lineage directs us to a inheritance that we are to claim by way of claiming a nation. You don't necessarily have to know which nation you come from. Just like, let's just say you had an orphaned kid, and they were over there in Asia and they didn't know which part of Asia they came from. Do you think they're going to start calling themselves yellow just because they don't know which part of Asia they necessarily came from? No, they're going to choose an Asian title to be called. They're going to assume an identity that is most befitting of who they believe themselves to be. And if at the very least, I can't do nothing but call myself, Japanese, or I can't do anything but call myself Asian or whatever, I'm not going to call myself yellow. I know that. I know that I'm not yellow. I could tell by my hair. I could tell by my eyes. I could tell by my nose. I could tell by my lips. I'm not yellow. I'm Asian. And if I know that as a sister or a so-called black woman, I have to recognize I am not black. There is no such thing as a place called black for me to claim as a nation. I can't visit black. I can't go and visit I can't identify black family members. I can't, under the law now, I'm talking about political systemic oppression. I'm not saying sentimentally can I go and visit my black people. Yeah, I can visit all y'all cousins everywhere. But under the law, there is no such thing as a black place in the land, I should say. And so as a race or a nation of people, we have to start understanding that us willfully accepting these titles, these fictitious titles, it gives us the most difficult route out of oppression. It gives us the worst navigation, because we cannot understand the connection between our land and our laws. Your land and your laws are meant to tie in together. The people who are natural inhabitants of a particular land, those are the people who get to decide what will happen with the laws culturally, because they were there on that land to inhabit it first. They inherit the land from the people who were there before them. And so when we understand that we are the sole heirs of the land, Europeans do not have a genetic tie to any land on the face of this earth at all. And if you think I'm lying, I must be flying or I'll be dying. Listen, Europeans do not have a genetic DNA connection or link to any land on the face of this earth. That is the reason why politically they are on a quest, and economically and racially, to oppress those who are in ownership of land. The whole mission of going to democratize any land is to colorize the people on that land and say, I'm going to colorize you because I want to strip this land from you. I can't allow you to call yourself Asian if I want to come over here and take over Asia. Do you see what I mean? If I'm going to take this land from you, I cannot allow you to continue claiming it as your nation, as your birthright, as your nationality. I cannot allow you to do that. So I'm going to call you yellow. I'm going to strip you off of the land and then democratize it. Colorize first, democratize later, and then you dominate. You write the laws after you have stripped the land, after you've colorized the people on the land. Then you begin to create laws and say, well, since you guys are yellow, not Asian, since you're yellow and this is Asia, I'm going to go ahead and take over Asia because there are no longer any Asians here. You all have now started calling yourself yellow, and you love it, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and take over Asia, and I'm going to start writing the laws for all of you to systemically obey because I have a nationality. I'm telling you that I'm European. I'm telling you that I'm Dutch. I'm telling you that I'm this, I'm British, I'm that, I'm whatever. So I'm going to assert my national power or my fictitious power over you because I've stripped you away from your identity, which also strips you away from your rights, your natural rights. When you don't know your natural laws, that's deep. If you don't know your natural laws, you will never know your natural rights. And when we were taken away from our natural identity as indigenous people, you could call us Moors from the Moorish Empire. You could call us indigenous or native Moorish Americans, Hebrews, whatever you want to call us. You took us away from that national identity. And then you started calling us black. And then we started calling ourselves black. And now we're not even trying to argue with you when you call us black anymore. We're not even trying to argue when you say, oh, this is not for black people. This ain't for you. This society is not for you. These laws are not for you. Why? Because you abandoned your land. Prophetically, out of your mouth, you have abandoned your land. You're no longer speaking your identity. You're no longer speaking of your inheritance. You've lost your mind. You've lost that you have even any claim to this in the first place. So what am I going to do? I'm going to control your assets. I'm going to control the land for you. I'm going to create the laws. And when I do create the laws, because I know that you are powerful, and because I know that if you ever realize that you are the true owner of this land, I'm going to have a tough time stopping you from taking back control of it. Okay? So when I write these laws, I'm going to oppress you. And I'm also going to oppress everyone else on certain levels. I'm going to take it a little bit easier on the other people. But I need them to be oppressed too, because I also need them to participate in my efforts to do population control or depopulating the earth so that I can remain elite and in control. I want them to also participate in my quest to become dominant or to become globalized and dominant, because what I want to do is to democratize the entire planet. I want everybody voting to me. I want everybody asking me for their provisions because I want to be the one to decide what they get. I want to be the one to decide what these people are going to do, how they're going to live, what they're going to eat, what companies are going to serve their communities, what houses they'll be able to live in, what income they'll be able to earn. I'm going to determine all these things for you on your behalf because you keep on calling yourself a color, and you have no idea that I'm on your land calling the shots to you, and that I don't have no right to do that. So you're going to keep calling yourself black, and you're going to keep on calling yourself free. You think that you're free, and I'm going to play right into it. I'm going to continue to keep you in a state of mind where you believe that. I'm going to keep calling you black. I'm going to keep governing your land. I'm going to keep governing your mind. Everything that you consume in the media comes from me. All of the food that you consume comes from me. All of the opportunities that you might have to move into a certain neighborhood, raise your child, educate your child, all of that, all those options coming from me. And because I don't like you as a race, I'm going to make it even worse for you. Because I don't like you, I'm going to make it even worse for you to get ahead. Yes, there are some Caucasians who don't fit into the societal, capitalistic, idealistic storyline. There are some Caucasians out there who are not capitalistic in the way that they think. There are some of them out there who are not winning when it comes to the survival of the fittest. And so they are suffering from oppression, because true oppression at its worst uses economy as a tool for oppression on society. And so the people who cannot master economics, cannot master their own economic life and become economically successful, they're economically oppressed naturally. And there are plenty of Caucasians who fit into that category. And like I said, I would like for those Caucasians to understand and be even more empathetic to those so-called black people who are oppressed and who are on the same economic level as you. Because you can argue that there are some so-called black people who are at the top of the social structure when it comes to economics, when it comes to economic success. You can argue that they're not oppressed. But I can tell you for a fact that they are. Even though they might be economically successful, on their level of economic success, they are oppressed because they cannot do the same things. Let me tell you this. Take my brother T.I. for an example. He lives in a multi-million-dollar estate in a home. This man came to confront and basically defend the fact that he was not allowed to come into his home by a security officer that makes probably a fraction of what T.I. makes in a year. Economically, this man is economically oppressed, but what was he able to do to T.I.? This is a multi-millionaire, multi-million-dollar man. He was able to get him arrested. Why? Because don't nobody care if T.I. behind got money. When the police come, them handcuffs still fit around his wrist. He is oppressed. He is going to be made a spectacle of as long as he's wrapped in that skin. And there's absolutely nothing that can be done about it. Do you think that a Caucasian person who had that much money and lived in that neighborhood, that they would have been arrested and hauled away? Just for coming to talk to the security guard about what he just did to his wife? Come on now. Oppression exists on all levels. On all levels for a person who is wrapped up in this so-called black skin. And so for you as a Caucasian, even on a low economic level, you are not as oppressed. Yes, you are experiencing some level of oppression. But trust me, it is considered low in comparison to the oppression that's being felt by the people who are wrapped up in this skin and who wear this hair, who wear this crown. You do not have a single leg to stand on when it comes to the history of oppression. So if you're trying to add up your little pennies of oppression, trying to say, oh, I tried to go up here and get a loan to buy a house the other day, and they wouldn't give it to me because I got bad credit. I'm oppressed. Are you serious? Come on, get out of here. You have circumstantial situations or occasional situations where you could be mildly oppressed because of your economic situation. But when it comes to things that really matter, like your child being able to play on the street without being murdered, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about walking around the store and somebody following you around the doggone store. You don't have to worry about nobody telling you that you can't come to work looking a certain way because your hair naturally grows out of your head a certain way. You don't have nobody oppressing you or saying nothing to you because of the way you want to worship your God. You don't have nobody saying nothing to you about that. These are the things that really matter. You don't have nobody keeping your kids out of a certain school district because they look a certain way, or suspending your child because they want to study or learn or look a certain way. Come on, these things are happening around society on levels of systemic oppression, and it's structured a certain way. People who don't have a claim to land or don't have a claim to the land's resources or money, those are the people who are oppressed the most. But I want you to know that that happens even deeper for people who are wrapped up in so-called black skin. I want to read a comment. It says, how do you and these so-called Moors propose to go about gaining these rights? Through the court system? Good luck with that. Okay, you don't go through the court system because, again, the court system is responsible for executing the oppression. There are natural rights that you must first learn first in order for you to be able be able to know what rights you're even pursuing. Okay, there are uniform commercial codes that we all need to be aware of. There are political concepts that we need to familiarize ourselves with in order for us to become aware of what natural laws, or excuse me, to become aware of what natural rights should be executed by our natural laws. Now, when we start to understand what natural laws are, then we can start to construct and enforce our own natural rights. Now, when we establish what our natural rights are, then we can establish our own laws of the land. But we have to know, first of all, that we have a natural right to do so. We have a natural right to establish our own lands in this law. Our own laws in this land. And so we have to first get that under control in our minds first. We have to understand, just like anybody else can write a law, if you can come over here as a European, set up shop on this land, meaning you're setting up courts where you're dealing and doing business amongst your people. The courts of Europeans are only applicable to Europeans. Now, if I go and I do anything in the court system of the U.S. court system, the only thing I'm going to do is to make declarations. I'm going to submit notices of information. I'm going to decree certain things. I'm going to take certain actions in the U.S. court system. But no, I am not going into the court system to make any requests for my rights. I'm going to notify you that I am aware of my rights, and this is how I'm going to move forward in that knowledge and understanding of my rights. But no, I'm not asking you for permission to execute or enjoy the freedom of my rights, because they're natural rights and you can't do anything about that. That's almost like there being a European law that says it's illegal for black people to breathe, according to the European law. If I was to go and say, listen, this is what I would essentially be doing. Listen, I am an indigenous person. I do not identify with European laws, and therefore I will continue to breathe because it is my natural right to do so. That's what it would look like. I recognize that this is your law, which does not apply to me because I am indigenous. I am not European. I don't have any claims to the European way of life or the European culture. And so, no, I will not follow this law of your determination because it does not apply to me. I can show you, first of all, on my documents. Okay. And this is for my brothers who know about nationalizing yourself under the law and becoming sovereign from the European law or the U.S. legal system or the U.S. law structure. If you remove yourself from that by legally declaring, just like there is a Declaration of Independence on file, we can declare our national identity by law and reap the legal benefits of nationalizing ourselves. Black is not a nation. If you nationalize yourself and say, I am Hebrew, I am indigenous to the Americas, I am indigenous to this, whatever land I'm indigenous to, then this is the legal system or the legal structure that I'm a part of. Our laws ain't got nothing to do with y'all. And y'all laws don't have nothing to do with us. First of all, because this is not your natural land. You are not naturally indigenous to this place. So for you to come over here and set up shop would be like you going over to an Asian country and setting up a DMV and saying, okay, now Asians, I'm over here with my DMV. I need you to register your cars to me and pay me the tax on your vehicles. They would look at you like you was stupid. They would look at you like you was stupid. What do you mean? Your laws don't have anything to do with me over here in Asia. You're the US. You can't come over here and make laws for me. It's the same concept. Europeans cannot come to this landmass and create laws for people that are not under their jurisdiction. Europeans are under European jurisdiction. Just like Asians are under Asian jurisdiction, or just like Africans would be under African jurisdiction. If they would be able to hold themselves from colonization and democratization, they would be under their own laws. India, those Indians, they're subject under their own Indian jurisdiction. They're not following U.S. laws. Do you understand what I'm saying? People in different countries, they are, first of all, aware of their nationality. They know that Germans know they're German, or people in Germany know that they're Germans. People in Asia know that they're Asians. People in India know that they're Indians. Okay, people in Australia know they're Australians. Black people don't know that we're indigenous to the America. We don't know that we are Moors or Hebrews, indigenous to the Americas. We're not aware of that. And I'm going to tell you, this landmass is not called in antiquity. It is not called America. That is a modern name that was given to this land, named after a Caucasian man named Americus. So if you want to seriously talk about where you're from a place called Al Morocco, or the Northwest Amexem. And that's where America really, Americus, they decided to just kind of deviate over to this guy a little bit. Al Morocco, Moor, the Moabite Empire, the Moorish Empire. That's what your nationality is, if you are indigenous to this land. And so we have to start getting to a place where we understand the connections and the marriage between your land and your laws. There is a marriage between land and laws. Laws are natural, spiritual. They should be based on natural, spiritual rights. I'm getting that backwards. Your natural, spiritual rights should be based on the laws, your natural, spiritual laws. And this is how we should be constructing the law of our land. We should be constructing the law of our land based off of natural laws, natural rights. And nothing other than that. Anything other than that is a discrepancy. It's a tragedy for us to be thinking that somebody can come to our land and say, you're black. It's like, bruh, do you see the sign on the window that says Morocco? I'm not black. I'm Moorish. Or I'm a Moabite. Or I'm Hebrew. There are different ways that you can say that depending on what you know about your history and what you would like to claim from that history. But it would behoove you to claim something other than black. Politically, sentimentally, you can call yourself black all day long. I don't care. But legally, on paper, you need to have a name. That's like if you was to sign a document and you signed your name X. That could be anything or anyone. It's not until you sign and put that energy into your signature that you become an individual, that you become identifiable. You have to say what it is. You have to detail it out. You can't just say, oh, I'm black. If according to the stipulations of how we became or how we inherited that name, being black is not a compliment. And it's not exclusive to people who are black in this country. The skin color that we wear comes all over this world. The skin color that we have, even our hair. There are people that live way across the ocean that look just like me. Are you going to call them black too? They're not going to accept that. There are some Ethiopians right now. If you went over to Ethiopia and because the women are voluptuous and they have afro hair and their skin is deeply melanated, if you went over there to call them black, they'd probably go outside your head. Call me black? What you talking about? I'm not black. I'm Ethiopian. I'm from Ethiopia. You understand? This is my inheritance. This is my land. This is where I come from. This is my heritage. This is my identity. This is my nation. These are my, the brothers and sisters of my nation. This is the law of my nation. These are the legal establishments of my nation. These are the leaders of my nation. These are the organizations of my nation. Do you understand what I mean? If we're not nationalizing and identifying as a cohesive, unified nation, how are we to establish those things that I just said? How are we to say that we have our own legal system or our own education system or any of our own social systems? We can't establish any of that until we've learned that we are a nation and that we're not black. So you don't adhere to the Atlantic enslavement passage. I thought Moors were from Morocco, which is in Northwest Africa. Well, I would like for you to consider the effects of Pangea on the evolution of man and the migration of man. At one point, all land masses were connected. And all people on those land masses were melanated people. And so when you have places that have broken off, then yes, there were some places that were still called Morocco. After the tectonic plates have shifted and the land has, parted, the people there would have still identified with the name of the land, even though it was now separated by the sea. Account for that in your calculations, because Pangea did exist, and the shifting and the breaking off of nations, it actually has occurred over the course of time. But human evolution did occur from there, from the point where all land was connected to the motherland. It wasn't until we started breaking off and moving to different places around the globe and having different orientations from the sun that we began to create different cultures or different races of people based on that movement. I'm not familiar with ADOS movement. You'll have to kind of elaborate on that for me a little bit so I can try to place it. But I will say that we created different names in different cultural societies after these shifts in the land happened. And but we can still rest assured that everybody on this planet was melanated and from the same place at the same time before all of the cultural evolution started to happen. And to me, that is the reason why we need to culturally and nationally identify ourselves and who we are, because we have to know that, there is no debate that there are different cultures here. There are different cultures, and they're not all considered what we would be considered as black, but we are indigenous to the land that we come from after the plates have broken off. We are indigenous because we're indigenous here because we were indigenous there. And that's the point that I mean. And yes, I'm going way back, because to me, the root of the thing is the most important part of it. That way you see where everything else has come from. You have to, analyze the root of it, and then you'll be able to see what the fruit is. And that's where I want to really focus my attention, is because there were no Caucasians on the planet at that time. And so for Caucasians to be ruling in those areas all over the globe, even after the shifting of the plates, we're seeing Caucasians that are dominating and creating these laws and rules as a nation where they don't belong. Like I said, they don't have any genetic ties to any land because they didn't descend, or they don't have any ancestry from any of those places, whether it be on Pangea or after Pangea split off into these different cultural societies. Caucasians are not rooted in any of those cultural societies. None of them from ancient times. There are no ancient roots to any Europeans at all. We are the only ones. Only melanated people from all cultures around the world have genetic ties to the land. That's it. Europeans do not have a nationality to claim. And what they're doing is claiming an identity that fits them the best. Okay? Because they don't have any ancient identity at all. Like I said, we all have ancient identity. And that is important to recognize. ancient times tell us that Caucasians are outside of their jurisdiction when it comes to them being rulers of the land. Now, they have a special contingency that has been made for them in the treaties of the United States government that, okay, when they started the Crusades, and this is a history moment that I'm going to give you, when Europeans came out of darkness because of them being taught by our ancient scholars, okay, they went into a Renaissance phase where the Greeks were able to enlighten their European people, okay, and they became leaders of European societies where they flourished and they were able to thrive because they were learning from the Moorish people, or from the melanated people that were experts on this land. We had experts really in all the sciences of the planet. And so when we go to teaching them, they started the Crusades because they started to realize who they were. They started to realize that they do not have any genetic connection to any land on this planet. Like I said, Caucasians do not have ancient ancestry. They are not rooted in any ancient civilization or society. Not one. And you can fact check that all day. There's not 1 ounce of evidence of European existence in ancient times. And so considering that, we have to move into present day to recognize that when they started the Crusades, their intention was to rob us from our land. Why? Because they knew they could not survive without taking it from us. If they knew that we were, I'm going to rephrase that. They knew that because they did not have any ancient roots in the land, that they also had no natural resources. They had nothing to present on the world stage when it came to bartering, when it came to import export, when it came to exchange currency. They had no leg to stand on. And so that would have put them in an inferior position for them to try to participate on a world economy. In world economy, we were already traveling the globe and participating in trade. We were bringing the natural resources from our land. We were bringing our creations. We were bringing our crafts and our goods to different places and trading. Okay. So what did they start to realize? They didn't have no natural resources to trade. They had to start trading commodities, and the only commodity they could come up with was humans. Human resources. Okay. Does that term sound familiar? Human resources. What it was the industry that Caucasians created in order for them to participate in global economy, for them to be able to say, oh, I have something to trade with you. It's humans. They will do the work of your land. They will till your crops. They will create your this or that. They will, build your houses. They will do whatever you want them to do. And this is how we have to understand. And this is how we got here. This is how we got to this place where these people have recognized they don't have any economic resources because they never had any natural resources. And you have to know that is what the economy is built on. It's built on natural resources. And you can consider human beings a natural resource. We came out of the land. And so these people realize that. These people have been able to dominate and democratize every land on this planet because they understand the value of land and natural resources. They see that, oh, look at my goodness. These people have so many things to trade. They have all this knowledge. They have all this intellectual property. They have all these natural resources. They got gold coming out of the ground. They've got diamonds over here, and they got, all this other stuff that we could be trading, but we don't have any rights to any of the land. So I have to go and I have to use my rhetoric. I have to use my propaganda. I have to use my agendas. I have to use brute force in order for me to get over here, take these people off of the land, make them forget that they even own the land in the first doggone place. And I have to give them this story. I have to give them this color. I have to tell them that you're black, you're yellow, you're red, you're brown. Why Hispanics all of a sudden they brown? Indians all of a sudden they red. Asians all of a sudden they yellow. Africans and all of a sudden we black. Come on, we got to start understanding the root of the problem here. They don't have any ties to the land. They have no business being in control of any system of anything because they don't have any natural rights to what they are claiming. And so what I want us to know is that we don't have to ask these people for permission. We don't have to ask them to give us our land back. All we have to do is claim our national birthright, claim our national identity in order for us to claim our national birthright. And once we have the ability to do that, then we'll be able to construct our own political system on our own land. They'll be having to come to us as a part of our organizations, our affiliations, our structures, for us to be able to get to a place where they're asking us for access into our systems. You understand what I'm saying? There will be no more, let me come to you and register my car to you so that you can keep tracks and keep keep tabs on me. No, we have our own system of registration for indigenous people, and this is how we govern our property. This is how we tax ourselves. This is how we represent ourselves. This is our political, system and our political orientation. This is how we take care of our land. We're not going to come to you and ask you any further to govern something that belongs to us. Your government has no business here because really, like I said, Caucasians, they were given, I totally went off on a tangent. Caucasians were given a special provision with treaties that were signed between the Moorish or the Moroccan government and the European or British government. When they came over here to democratize Moorish empires, the agreement is that they would not use human resources or take our land or take our homes or oppress us in certain ways. It was written that they would be given the right to only participate in commerce. And that is the reason why your national flag is in truth not a flag at all. What it is called is a banner. It is a banner of amity and commerce, or commerce and trade. And what it signifies with the gold fringe around it is that, or the gold fringe that hangs from it, the gold fringe represents maritime law. Maritime law represents marine life, maritime or marine life, or the water, the oceans. This is where you establish, or this is where Europeans were given rights to the resources. So if anything, Caucasians should be governing the fishing of the oceans, or overfishing of the oceans, or keeping the oceans clean, or import and export as it pertains to what's going back and forth between certain countries. They should only be governing that type of stuff that happens on the water, because the things that happen on land, they have no right to. This was written into the law. This is on file right now with the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and other treaties that were written out in, amongst the British government and other indigenous cultures. But we are, and there are some modern presidents who talk about it. I think Bill Clinton or Bush, one of them, stood up and gave an address about it. But we don't know anything about it, so we're not enforcing it. We're not enforcing the implications of what that means. Is that our national flag is Morocco. Our national flag is Al Morocco, or the Northwest Amexem. The Star Spangled Banner has absolutely nothing to do with our landmass. It has nothing to do with where we live on this land and the laws that we should be following. The landmass that we live on, it should not ever be under European jurisdiction. And really, it is not under European jurisdiction. The only problem is that we don't know that. And so we steadily following these people's rules. We steadily going up to Uncle Sam and filing for food stamps and filing taxes and filing for marriage licenses and filing for gun licenses and filing for fishing licenses. And we're steadily going to them and asking for participation in their systems. We steadily going and giving votes and registering to vote and registering our cars and paying these mortgage tax. I mean, come on. We're doing the whole list of things because we don't know no better. We don't know that they don't have the jurisdiction to even do that. We don't have no idea that nobody should be pulling us over and asking for a driver's license. Why? Because when I'm driving my car and I'm not participating in commerce at all, like I said, commerce and trade is what their jurisdiction is. If I'm not participating in commerce and trade while I'm driving my car or while I'm in my car on the road, nobody should be stopping me and asking me for no license. Why? Because I'm indigenous to this land, and that law of commerce has nothing to do with me taking my child to daycare. That law has nothing to do with me being licensed. And I'm going to tell you the reason why we must know these laws is because in the law, it'll tell you that you cannot drive your car or your vehicle unless you have a driver's license. But it will also tell you that a driver, by definition, is somebody who is carrying goods, commercial goods, over the road. If you're in your car doing something personal, handling your personal business, you're not a driver. You are a traveler, and there's a huge difference. You're traveling in what they call by law a mode of conveyance. And if you want to speak to a policy keeper, which is a police officer, when they pull you over and they're keeping the policy, you have to talk to them in the terms of the policy. You can't say, yes, officer, I was just driving over here to go get this. Then you're under their jurisdiction. And you're telling him that you're driving. He knows that you're not participating in commerce. He know you ain't selling nothing. He know you ain't got no boxes in the back. He know you ain't owning you don't own a company that's participating in commerce. So what is he going to do? He's going to illegally enforce jurisdiction on you because you're ignorant and don't know that that's not his proper jurisdiction. And you don't know the terminology to tell him, sir, I'm actually traveling in my mode of conveyance and I'm not driving my vehicle. Okay. So this is why we have to understand the difference between what does it mean for me to be indigenous and have natural rights based on natural laws, or being under the law of man, which is somebody just sitting down and saying, oh, you know what? I don't like it when people do that, so I'm going to write a law about it. I don't like it when people discriminate, or I don't like it when people, don't tell me where they're going. So I'm going to write a law that says they have to have a driver's license. And it's just like, excuse me, you don't have no right to enforce that kind of stuff on me. And if I'm smart enough and wise enough, I'm going to tell you about yourself, and I'm going to kindly move along without even acknowledging that mess. I'm going to tell you this, Tim, in most situations, when you provide that information, they will argue you. And the way I've learned it from the experts that I've learned this information from is they teach you to do what's called standing on your square. I have videos posted all in my IGTV of brothers who were able to stand their square. When you're able to stand on your square and you know the information properly, and this is something that you must study. It's not something that you're going to be able to start doing overnight. Just like if you were a lawyer, you can't start practicing law overnight. You're going to have to start learning these laws, learning the jurisdiction, learning what's applicable to you and what's not. Because then when they challenge you and say, give me your driver's license, you're going to have to be able to tell them, I'm not giving you no driver's license because I'm not required to based on this, that, or the other. And this is the reason why I know that a lot of our people have issue, because we don't have the time for that. A lot of us ain't focused on that. A lot of us don't care about it. We don't know how important it is. A lot of us, we're unaware of it. So we don't even want to put the time or attention into saying, hey, listen, I got to learn this stuff. I got to learn this because it's going to set me free. This is not just having to deal with you driving the car. This is the mortgage that you pay. This is the school that you go to or that your children go to. This is the money that you make. This is the taxes that you pay. This is your whole entire life as it concerns the government. Every license that you've ever obtained, every tax paper that you've ever filed, every time you ever gone to jail or paid for something that had interest on it or the credit, anything. It's relative to all of that. When you realize which laws apply to you, all of these laws don't apply to us. They don't. And we have to start picking them out and learning them. There are only 2 experts that I know. Well, I'm going to say it's more than 2 experts. I know some experts in the field. I know of at least 4 that I could say. I know Lawanye is an expert, Michael is an expert, Sabir Bey is an expert, and Taj Tariq Bey is an expert. And so when we are considering the fact that there are people out here with this knowledge, I'm doing some work trying to present the knowledge in a format that people can take it and learn it and apply it, because there's also a situation that we're going to face when we learn the laws. We also have to know how to operate in the laws, because if we can't apply them correctly, then our enemy is going to try to use that to imprison us. They're going to try to use that to say, You don't know those laws fully. So the same way we take advantage of loopholes, they would be interested in taking advantage of loopholes as well. If we don't know what exists in the law fully, compactly, tightly working together, where we don't have no holes in our arguments, when we go to present ourselves in courts, or when we go to file certain documents, or when we have certain expectations of the law, if we have loopholes, they're going to slip through them, and they're going to try to imprison you if you got loopholes in your argument, or if you have loopholes in your understanding of the truth of the law. If you don't know naturally by way of your DNA what's going on, they will take advantage, and they will try to imprison you if you're not able to stand on your square. And so, I don't know what that's going to mean for us, because I know that there are plenty of us out there who have the fortitude to learn these kind of things, but all of us ain't got it. All of us ain't got it. And I swear, a part of my goal, for my entrepreneur, what I want to call myself, a part of my goals as being a social entrepreneur is for me to help the people that I know who are experts in this field to be able to get the information put into some kind of learnable format where it's easy to learn. Me being a trainer, Tim, you're not the only person that know how to train people. You probably don't know nothing about that, but I have several years of experience in training, corporate training as well. And so one of my goals is for me to create training products for people to be able to learn these things in concept and in application, so that we are moving forward as a group of people when we're learning at least from each other when it comes to the pieces of information we got to put together to build our structure. We have to we have to learn at some point that there's a unified effort that we have to come together to create this knowing of all people. You understand? None of us can do this on our own. Not one of us. There are some people out there who are living by this right now. Kendrick Lamar, I know, is one of them. There are several people who are a part of the Moorish community, people who are aware of their indigenous rights. Like my uncle is one of them. My uncle don't even pay a mortgage on his house because he recognizes the power of a signature on an application. When you sign for something, you've paid for it. And my uncle, he could break that down to you much better than I can. But I will say that there are people out there who know. There are people who operate in it, and there are people who will teach you if you take the time to learn. It's not something you're going to learn overnight. You have to learn how to study. You have to learn how to be diligent. You have to learn how to focus. If you can't pick up a book, honey, that's this thick and get that mug. If you can't do it, you're going to be oppressed. You're going to be oppressed. You're going to be oppressed. If you can't, goodness gracious, if you can't invest in your knowledge, you're going to be oppressed. If you can't invest in you learning reality, what reality is to you. And let me tell you something. Most of the time, the books and the data that's in these books, you already know it. By the time you done started reading this, it's going to start calling itself out of your DNA naturally, because law is a science, and we were the originators of it. So once you start reading it, trust and believe me, you're going to start picking it up and being very interested in what it means and what it says. Why? Because of what I just said. It's applicable to every area of your life. So when you start reading the commercial code, and when you start reading all these political addendums and all of these, this and that, it'll start to come to you. Tim, yeah, there are some things that I could show you guys, and I might link it to you. So if you go on to, what's this man's name? R as in Reese, V as in Victor, BEY, RV Bay Productions. God, I hope that's the right website. Let me try to type it in. rvbayproductions.com. There you'll find a wealth of information on this. There's a brother named Michael King who is on Facebook. He has also a page on Instagram called Sovereignty Something Thing. I'm gonna have to just post about it, y'all. Come back and check later because I got to check my facts. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yes, there are some resources that I can give you where you can learn the information and do your best to see if it's something that you can just put into your regular rotation. I'm gonna tell you this. There are so many Caucasians. There's a brother named David Icke. There's a brother named John Maxwell. Come on now. These people are experts in the field of sovereignty. There are even Caucasians out there that are claiming themselves to be sovereign from European law. Why? Because they recognize they got a raw deal. The government has nobody's best interest at heart, not even Caucasians. And so there are a whole entire community of Caucasian people out there who literally have denounced the government, and they live their lives sovereign from the United States government. Legally, on paper, they're not affiliated. So I'm going to leave the links. I want y'all to go to www.reeseroberts.com so you can join my website. If you click the join tab, you'll be able to give me your first name and your email address. You'll have access to free book downloads and some curated content that's about consciousness and the things I'm talking about. I'm about to time out. So I love y'all. My hour is over. Come